live to talk a little bit more about one of the questions that one of you asked me this week. So hello to anyone who's interested in coming to join me to hear me talk about this question. So the question that I'm going to talk about today is this: will I ever learn and practice and eventually know that I am worthy and lovable? What a lovely question, and how wisely it's phrased. So let me just say that again. Will I ever learn? So the person asking it realizes that there is learning and there is growing involved. It isn't something that we just get just like that. They realize that we have to do some work, and we have to make that a goal and a target, and something we reflect on lots and think about. So will I ever learn and practice? And again, practice is great. Practice is great because that part of the question means, will I ever get to a point where my practice is my life? So what you see is what you get. My life is my practice. And when you look at me and you watch the way I live and you watch the way I interact with the world, then you see that my life is my practice, and I am practicing what I have come to know and believe and understand and hold dear, and will not now relinquish or let go of. So I absolutely love this question. Will I ever learn and practice and eventually know? And again, know I love, because there is a kind of knowing that is present deep inside us. It isn't an intellectual knowing, and it isn't merely an emotional knowing. It's a knowing that we feel deep in our essence, deep down. And when we have reached that stage of knowing, we are immovable, invincible. We can't be pushed over, we can't be knocked, or if we do get knocked, we bounce back very quickly. So I'm loving the way that the person who asked this question, I'm loving their degree of spiritual understanding, that it is a process. It's something we learn, it's something we practice, and which eventually becomes our life, because eventually we reach a degree of knowing and inner knowing. Our essence knows and understands that we are worthy and we are lovable. So, so much in this question. I love the question. Thank you for asking it. Will I ever learn and practice and eventually know that I am worthy and lovable? So let's just break it down. Let's take this bit by bit by bit. And the place that I want to start, which may be a surprise to some people and not to others, the place I want to start is to say that I believe that we are born knowing these things. I believe that when we are born, we know this already. We know that we are worthy. We know that we are lovable. Look at the freedom with which a newborn baby greets the world. Look at the sense of entitlement and absolute authenticity with which a baby greets the world. And in my psychotherapy training years and years ago, one of the things that was very difficult to have to do, but also through which I learned lots, was that everyone in psychotherapy training has to do what's called a child observation. And that means that for a period of 2 years, from birth to 2, we go into a family that's kind enough to let us spend some time with them, and we observe a newborn baby through in all its reactions, all its stages, through to the age of 2. And we also do an awful lot of child observation in general, because in my training and my background, I have learned that what you see as an adult began as a child. So the experiences that we have as a child, helpful, unhelpful, affirming, negative, frightening, shaming, blaming, whatever they be, those experiences form the adult that we become. And it sets us on a lifelong quest, a lifelong path to come back to our authentic self. And I start there because I believe that this question is about, will I ever be able to get back my authentic self and live as my authentic self? That's the way that I understand that question. That is what I think that question means. Will I ever learn and practice and eventually know that I am worthy and lovable? So let's start with the newborn baby. Let's start with where I would begin as a psychotherapist. And let's remember that a newborn baby is born free. A newborn baby is born with a sense of entitlement, with a sense of freedom to be themselves. You just watch a newborn baby and all the reactions and emotions and interactions that a baby has with its parents and its family and its world, everything that surrounds it. And a baby is born entitled. A baby is born curious and entitled and without fear. And then we start to intervene. So the first point that I want to make is, this isn't about learning something afresh. When we think about this question, we're not learning something that we've never known. We're not starting from ground zero. What we're actually doing, we are trying to remember and return to and recover the knowing that we were born with. And from my spiritual perspective, I would just want to add the knowing that we knew before we were born, and the knowing that we had from the otherness from which we have come. But that is my spiritual perspective, and I don't force that on anybody. But that's an addition to my understanding, if you will. So we're born knowing all of that stuff. We're born knowing that we are worthy, and we are born knowing that we are lovable. So then, how does that get eroded? Because we walk through the world, don't we? We walk through the world meeting people for whom that has been eroded. And we know within ourselves and our own journey that within us it is also eroded. And I want to say that as I now list some of the ways that that becomes eroded, there is no blame. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, because I absolutely know and believe that we all do the very best with what we know and with what we have at any point in time. That is all we can ever do. So when we talk about what we learned as children, unless someone is actually setting out actively to destroy us, and yes, there are some individuals that would do that, there are, but even they have reached that point of behaving in that way and carrying that degree of hatred and desire to destroy inside them because of what they have known. It goes back. So even then, as a psychotherapist, I don't want to attribute blame. I would rather start with, We are born knowing these things. We are born knowing that we are worthy and that we're lovable. And part of our challenge, part of the adventure of this lifetime, part of the way we grow and learn and we expand our sense of compassion and empathy is by going through the journey that will take us back to remembering and retrieving what we knew when we were born. If we look at it that way, then this is a slightly easier journey than it might have initially sounded, because it's not something we've got to go and study. We've not got to go and read loads and loads of self-help books. We've simply got to allow ourselves to let go, and it's work. It's not easy. It's a journey of hard work, but the journey involves letting go of all the baggage that we have acquired since that glorious moment when we came into the world, hopefully, eagerly, excitedly, ready and up for the adventure. So let's think about what gets in the way. Let's think about what happens. Well, not all of us are born into the easiest environment. Not all of us are born into an environment where that sense of entitlement and eagerness is encouraged. Lots of things can happen in our lives. Some of them, all of them, no, I'm going to take that back, all of them accidental. All of them accidental. So sometimes, immediately after birth, we find ourselves in a situation where something happens that impinges on our sense of well-being. That might be illness, it might be depression in someone around us, it might be family stress and worry, it might be difficulties in a marriage which we are observing and witnessing and which frightens us. There may be separation, even separation when a newborn baby comes along is separation. There may be many things that happen that are simply life events, but which dull our joy and which take away our complete sense of well-being and our sense of safety in the world. Because in order to return to this place of knowing that we are worthy and lovable, we need to feel safe. We need to feel safe right down in the core of us. And so many of us learn fear. So many of us have our wings clipped. Again, not necessarily intentionally. Sometimes it's because the environment into which we are born is a stressful and frightening environment and a difficult environment. Sometimes it's because we are born to parents or into families that are fearful themselves, where there is enormous anxiety or deep depression, or where there is a degree of rigidity in the family or from the parents, a degree of rigidity that comes from being fearful about the world. So when that is there, what happens is we learn from the rigidity that our parental environment teaches us that if we don't stick to the rules, if we don't do the right things, something dreadful is going to happen. Sometimes we just breathe that in the atmosphere. Sometimes we just feel, if I step out of line, if I break this rule, if I don't walk this straight and narrow path, a catastrophe is waiting for me. I don't actually know what that catastrophe is going to be, but I grow up with the sense that if I don't live in this way, and if I don't hold these beliefs, and if I don't see things like this, something dreadful will happen. And that unspoken fear of something dreadful is going to happen is within so many clients and so many spiritual seekers that come to see me. That fear of, if I don't do it this way, something dreadful is going to happen. And isn't that so far from the fearlessness with which a newborn baby greets the world? So we learn fear. We learn fear. And there are other things that contribute to our learning fear that take away our sense that we are at a deep knowing level worthy and lovable. So let's think about some of the ways that we learn to be fearful. One of the most painful ways that we learn to be fearful, and my goodness, I come across this so much in this room, in my work with clients. One of the ways that we learn to be fearful, one of the ways is that we live in an environment as we grow up as a child of conditional love. What does conditional love look like? What does it feel like? Conditional love teaches us, if you do things my way, if you do what I want, if you meet my needs, if you don't step out of line, if you live as an extension of me, if you achieve things that will make me approve and proud of you, you can have my approval. And that approval will feel like love. It isn't love because it's about me. It isn't love because it's about me. But it will feel like love to you. You will call it love. And when you sit in the chair opposite your therapist in your 30s or 40s, you will tell your therapist that you had wonderful parents because they were so proud of you. And your therapist may believe that, but your therapist also may say, so what did that look like? What does that mean? And you may find yourself saying, well, they were so proud of me when I won this, or I got that mark, or I got to that university, or I achieved that. They were so proud of me. And your therapist might say, and how did that feel to you? How did that feel to you? And there's just a possibility that you might say, well, it felt good, but I never quite felt I got there. I always felt there was more that was expected. I always felt there was more that I could do. And actually, if I think about it now, it left a sort of an empty place inside me. I never actually felt I was good enough. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, how do I know I'm worthy and lovable? Well, we don't learn it because we are praised and congratulated for our achievements. That means that we're only approved of or only lovable because we achieve. And I see so many people sitting in this room who have become ill with stress from driving themselves like crazy without knowing why. It's never enough. And I always know that we are very likely dealing with someone who has known conditional love. So one of the things that leaves us with a sort of an empty place inside us is the sense that we're only worthy or lovable when we're doing what other people want us to do. And if we've learnt that really well, we walk through the world desperately trying to work out what we need to do, what we need to say, how we need to be in order to maintain other people's approval. Because we have learned that we're only going to be loved if we do what other people think we ought to do. So we can never be like that newborn baby, feeling entitled, feeling authentic, knowing what we feel and want and are making of this, and living from our gut feeling and our intuition. We can't do that when we have grown up learning conditional love. So that is the biggest challenge to achieving what this questioner is asking, which is, again, for people that have just joined, it's, will I ever learn and practice and eventually know that I am worthy and lovable? And we're looking at some of the things that take away our sense of knowing those things, which we are born with. We come into the world possessing as a baby. Some of the other things that might take away our sense of worthiness and being lovable. Some of us are bullied. Some of us are bullied because we are different. Those of us who are bullied because we're different grow up again learning that approval and therefore love is conditional. In order to be approved of and accepted, you have to be the same. And that means giving up who you are because you weren't the same or you wouldn't be bullied. And I know so many beautiful souls, sensitive, kindly, gentle, tuned in, creative souls who come up against a harsh world that has lost its sense of authenticity and freedom and attacks souls living beautifully from the heart. And it is so painful for me as a therapist to see that has happened, but so joyful to help someone walk back and remember who they are and recover their essence and be able once again to live their soul truth from their heart. Sometimes our freedom to feel worthy and to know that we are lovable arises out of shame. Shame, I reckon, is one of the biggest killers of feeling worthy and lovable. We learn to feel shame because we feel that something we've done or some part of us, some aspect of us is so unacceptable that we could never ever walk through the world feeling good about ourselves. And if anything kills our freedom to feel authentic, it's that. And so first thing I want to go back to and repeat something that I said a few minutes ago is all of us only ever do the best we can with what we know at any one time, influenced by our upbringing and our childhood and our life experience and what we have known. And if you look at that package, what is there to judge? I sit in this room and people judge what they feel. They tell me they're a bad person because they feel angry. And I say, how can feeling angry make you a bad person? Feeling angry is part of your soul truth. It's part of your essence speaking. It's your inner voice telling you something. It is your inner voice guiding you and saying, no, I don't like this. I'm not happy about this. Your anger is your no. If you behave badly as a result of your anger, if you go out and throw something and smash it, or you go out and punch somebody, or you scheme to sort of get your revenge, yes, you can judge your behaviour. Yes, you can judge your behaviour, but don't judge what you feel. Don't judge what life has thrown at you. Work with it, honour it, invite it in, and let it grow you. So there is no need for shame, as long as we are saying, I will grow through this. I will learn from this. This is my journey, and this is the place I'm in on this journey. But this is not the end. I'm work in progress, and just watch me from here. But some people are very good at shaming us, and they are also usually the people who offer conditional love. Go back to this again and again. It's a very powerful tool, shaming someone. It's a very powerful tool to be an adult shaming a child. It's the most wonderful mode of control to shame a child. And, you know, shame isn't always about behaviour. It's about expectation. I watched a really painful episode when I was on my child observation as a psychotherapist years ago. And it was so painful. I still feel the pain now. And I was watching a parent with a little boy, week by week by week, who was desperate for that little boy's love. Clearly a parent who had not known love herself and was incredibly hungry for love. And I think she felt that her little boy was her second chance. This was the person, this was the one who was going to love her. But the way she went about getting him to love her was to make him anxious. So she would need him with her all the time, and she would praise him and dote on him when he followed her around. But if ever he wanted to run off into another room or sit and play on his own with something, she would immediately say, now look, you've made Mummy cry. You've really upset Mummy, you've made Mummy cry. And to see the look of horror and guilt and sense of responsibility on that little boy's face was unbearable. But then on top of that came the shame, because if he then tried to put it right by running to her with open arms, expecting to be picked up, held and cuddled, she would not respond. And she would look at him as if to say, what on earth are you doing? What makes you think that I want to cuddle you? And again, you would see the look, not of guilt this time, but of shame. You would see the shame hit his face, like he had asked for something and expected something, but had got it wrong. He had tried to be open-hearted. He had tried to show that he was worthy and lovable. And he had been shamed. He had been shamed into realising that he'd got above himself. He'd expected too much. No, he wasn't worthy. He wasn't worthy, And right now in this minute, he wasn't lovable. So conditional love, blame, shame, being played mind games with, gaslighting, children who grow up where there is a member of the family who has, if not narcissistic personality disorder, then at the very least narcissistic tendencies. So that parent will always deny their part in something and always make the child feel that they got it wrong, or they will make the child feel that what the child experienced or believed they saw or felt was unfair or unjust was just the child's perception, and they'd got it badly wrong. And that again pulls the rug from under us. It makes us question our authentic voice, because our authentic voice reads what's going on. Our authentic voice knows. But when someone regularly gaslights us, when someone regularly tells us that what we feel or believe or have seen or picked up is wrong, we start to question ourselves. We start to doubt ourselves. We start to develop the kind of self-doubt which also is part of no longer knowing that we are worthy and lovable, but rather believing that we are a damaged human being that can't read correctly and who shouldn't have the expectations or hopes that they have. So all of these things and so many besides teach us that unlike the baby who came into the world up for the adventure, and as authentic as you can possibly be, knowing without needing to know, just deep down as a deep knowing that they are worthy and lovable and entitled. Unlike that baby, we have learned by the lessons of this world to believe that we are no longer worthy and no longer lovable. But I want to say again, all that means, the good news is that we've simply forgotten what deep down we've always known. That's not gone. That's not gone. We've just forgotten. It's not that that knowledge that we were born with has got taken away from us. We haven't lost any rights. We've simply forgotten that we've got them. Years ago, I was a trainer. I used to teach assertiveness and confidence building. And one of the things that used to shock people and make them laugh a bit was I used to pull an imaginary card out of my pocket and say, look, I've got a membership card here and I carry it around in my pocket with me all the time. And on this card it says, I'll just read it for you, I am a fully paid up member of the human race. And I would show it to everybody in the group. And they would sort of laugh like it was, it was a joke. It was a little bit of make-believe. It was funny. And then I would say, and I want you to reach into your pocket and I want you to find your card because it isn't only me that's got this card. You've got this card too. And on your card, exactly like on mine, it says, I am a fully paid up member of the human race. And then on the back of the card, when you turn it over, you can read, and it's a really clever card. You can scroll, like you can scroll on a screen. And as you scroll, you'll see all the rights that you as a human being, as a paid up member of the human race, you will see all the rights that you were born with. All the rights that you were born with. And they are permanent. Nobody can take those from you. It's on your card. It's on your card, and you carry that card in your pocket all the time. The only thing that happens is sometimes people make you doubt that you've got those rights. And it feels like they've taken them away from you. No. They've just made you doubt it. And when someone makes you doubt it, reach deep in your pocket and take it out again. I am a fully paid up member of the human race. These are my rights. And these rights belong to you, they belong to me, they belong to every soul that takes form on this earth. They are basic human rights. And one of them is, I have the right to know and live that I am worthy. And another is, I have the right to know and live that I am lovable. I have the right to my feelings. I have the right to my opinions. I have the right to my voice. I have the right to speak out. I have the right to be listened to and heard. I have the right to be treated with honour and respect. All these rights, they're on your card. I'm just going to put mine back in my pocket now, because that goes everywhere with me, and I suggest that you check yours out as well, because that card comes with you when you take form as a young soul coming into form at birth. You bring that card with you, and you are born knowing that you own that card. And it is only people who have lost their way, people who are confused, people who have had difficult times and haven't yet realised that they are to embrace and work on and grow from, rather than get stuck in. You came for the adventure, just like I did. You came with curiosity and eagerness. You came knowing that stuff. That card came with you. So this is not a difficult journey of having to learn these things for the first time. It is simply a journey of remembering. It is simply a journey of remembering. And years ago, when I wrote Dances Amongst the Stars, I have a friend who encouraged me throughout it all and called me a dear rememberer. And I thought that was such a wonderful, wonderful title. She called me a dear rememberer. And I have always thought of myself in that way since, that I am simply one who remembers. And what I love about my job and about doing this is the ability to help others remember, and to see them come alive, and to see them light up when they remember. When you remember,